My husband, 38 male, and I, 32 female, have been married for well over 3 years now. We met when I was 25, and he had to ask me out several times before I finally said yes, since he was in between jobs and I was flourishing at my company. So I was kind of hesitant to go out with someone who wasn't stable even after 30. But anyway, we did end up getting married, and I quit my job to help him start his own event management business after our marriage. I was a business major, so I put my skills to use, and I think I played a major role in his success. I was never legally a partner or even shareholder in his business, but it was always agreed upon that I must be present at meetings since my husband believed that I had amazing business acumen. I helped him build his business from the ground up, and I am definitely a huge part of the reason as to why he's running it so successfully now. It seems really stupid of me to never have asked to be made a partner in the business, but I trusted him so much that it never even occurred to me that if he ever decided to leave, all my hard work will be gone with him. Around 2 weeks ago, I found out that my husband had left me for my sister. He didn't even have the decency to let me know in person, but told me through an email that he wasn't out for some work, like he'd told me earlier, but was actually filing for divorce. He'd met my sister online a couple of months ago, and while he initially had no intention of cheating, he did end up falling for her over the past few weeks, and even mentioned that he felt sparks with her that he never did with me. He said that it would be best for us to part ways, and he wished me luck for my future. Of course, this also meant that since I'm not part of his life anymore, I don't get to be a part of his business either. I couldn't believe what was happening, since just in one day, my entire life had fallen apart. I didn't know what to do. I was a complete mess. To be honest, I didn't even know how my sister had found me or him. My sister, 27, female, and I haven't been in contact ever since I left home. We'd met at Christmas and stuff, but that ended after I got married and moved. My family and I had never been particularly close or anything anyway, but I hated my sister, and I think the feelings were mutual. She was a liar and a thief, and the sad thing was I'd never been able to convince my parents what she truly was. They thought the world of her and simply dismissed it whenever I complained about her, taking my stuff away and never returning any of it. She'd flirt with my boyfriends anytime I'd bring them over, and eventually they'd end up cheating, which obviously used to break my heart. And like I said, she was a thief. When we were kids, she'd steal my toys and clothes, but as we grew older, I began to find money missing from my purse, which stung, as it was my own hard-earned money from the part-time job that I worked at. Eventually, after I was done with college, I realized that I couldn't continue living this way and moved out. I had some money saved and some friends who were willing to split rent as roommates, and that's when I was finally able to leave my sister behind. I never bothered to look back and check up on my parents or sister because I knew they didn't care either way, and all of us were better off now. I'd never told my husband about any of this, and he never even questioned why my parents and sister didn't even attend our wedding, probably because on some level he knew that they weren't the nicest people. And I just didn't want them around me on a day I wanted to feel nothing but pure joy. Anyway, when I found out that my husband was gone and there was barely anything I could do to stop him since he'd already filed for divorce, I felt like crap when I realized that this time she'd stolen my life from me altogether. The only good thing was that I still had a roof over my head since I'd been the one who'd bought this house while he was still struggling to establish himself. I spent the next few days doing nothing but sobbing and drinking, as I had no idea what I was going to do now. I obviously wasn't going to beg my cheating husband to take me back or whatever, and neither did I have any work at the moment, so I was running out of money as well. I felt like a total fool for letting him use me to run his business without asking for anything in return and working for him, just blindly trusting him. I wanted to numb the pain of losing my marriage and my hard work of all these years, so I shut everyone out for some time before I finally felt like I could come back to the real world. However, today I received several calls from my husband and texts telling me to answer him immediately. I was a bit taken aback since I didn't expect him to call after what he'd said, and neither had I tried to go after him because I'd simply given up. I did call back, and what he told me absolutely blew my mind. After he'd filed for divorce with his lawyer and my sister alongside him, they decided to spend the rest of the day at a nearby hotel, but overnight my sister had gotten him drunk and managed to transfer almost $100,000 to her own account. She told him that she desperately needed the money to pay off some debts or her life would be in danger. All a lie. And he wasn't in his senses either, so he lapped it all up and transferred the money to save her. Now she's nowhere to be found, and he has realized that she'd made a total fool out of him. He wants me to help him track her down somehow and is extremely pissed off by the fact that I didn't warn him about his sister. That got to me, since it was pretty bold of him to blame me for not telling him how my sister was as a person when he was the one who cheated on me. I told him that I wasn't going to help him in any way whatsoever, and I didn't care what happened to him, and then hung up. Now he's trying to gaslight me into thinking that I'm the bad guy for not telling him how big of a thief my sister is when he told me that he was with her. He's saying that we're the ones who lost money and not just him, since it was the both of us who'd built the business. I don't know what to think though, since I'm really pissed off about everything that has been said and done. So AITA for not warning my husband about my sister being a thief? Update 1. So I decided to go through with the divorce myself. My husband had stopped the proceedings on his end when he found out that my sister had the money transferred to herself and then made a run for it. He couldn't even file a report for theft since he'd given her the money of his own free will, and it wasn't like he'd been forced to do anything he didn't want to. But I didn't care about any of that anymore and decided that I needed to leave this man for my own good. So this time, I'm the one who's filing for divorce from him, and he's the one begging me to stay with him. It's been a week since the last update, and 2 days after he told me about how my sister had disappeared and tried to blame me for not warning him about her tendency to steal, I decided that I was done being depressed and wanted to get my life back in control. After he was served with the papers, he became pretty desperate and started calling me, but I wasn't responding to any of it. When that didn't work, he tried to move back in with me, but I told him that he'd lost the right to stay under my roof when he betrayed me and ran off with my sister. He ended up begging for forgiveness on the doorstep, and it didn't make me feel sorry for him at all, just disgusted by how pathetic he was acting. He'd been the one who had ruined our marriage in one day, and now he expected me to just forgive him and take him back, pretending that nothing had happened and he hadn't just tried to take away the business that we'd built together. In fact, the whole reason that he could even afford to just give away that amount of money to my sister was because I'd worked hard to make sure his business didn't flop. He wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for me, and yet there was no appreciation or even an ounce of gratitude in him for whatever I'd done. I hadn't even asked him to make me a partner, just the bare minimum of being a loyal and loving husband, and he'd failed to fulfill even that. So yeah, I didn't feel too bad about leaving him crying on the doorstep. He deserved everything that was happening to him, and I wasn't going to be the one to try and do anything to prevent his life from falling apart. I've already spoken to my lawyer, and I'm going to demand that he makes me a partner in his business, fair and square, since everyone knows the amount of work that I put in. Not only that, but I'm coming after every single thing we have, and I'm not going to stop until he feels the same kind of pain and hurt that I did when I found out that he'd run away with my sister. He needs to know that he can't just walk all over me. He's still trying to convince me to take him back by writing long emails and saying that whatever my sister did, it made him realize that he was totally in the wrong here and would do anything to win me back. Well, it's too late now, and I'm not falling for any of his crap anymore. I'm kind of glad that my sister did whatever she did, since she just exposed my husband as the kind of liar, cheater, and ungrateful pig that he truly is. I guess this angry rant just goes to show how much hurt I'd bottled up within myself for the past few days. I'd always known that I was smarter than my husband, but I'd never made him feel inferior to me, even when he was struggling to make money and I was earning thousands. I was the one who had always been supportive of him, even when his own friends and family made fun of him for dreaming big and even helped him to realize those dreams. So, of course, I'd never even have imagined that one day he'd try to screw me over and take away everything from me. I'm just glad that I didn't try to chase him and accepted the fact that we were done. And now I'm going to take what I deserve. Update 2. We met at court today, and he's decided to go ahead and try to negotiate like an idiot, even though I literally have evidence of him cheating on me and planning to cut me out of the business that I helped him to build. He gave up trying to win me back a couple of days before today, since he'd figured out by then that I wouldn't be worn down by half-hearted and insincere apologies anymore. But he still wasn't willing to acknowledge that he'd messed up and let me take what's rightfully mine. Things got heated at our meeting today, since he's claiming that I don't deserve even 5% of his business since it's entirely his, and I haven't helped him out in the least, which is a bold lie to tell when he knows for a fact that everyone we've ever worked with and even our employees will be able to confirm the value that I've always held. He and his lawyer are painting me out to be an alcoholic, which is why he was forced to look for love outside of his marriage, and that's how he ended up with my sister, who also turned out to be a scammer just like me. I could hardly believe how he was trying to manipulate the facts and distort them to make me look unreliable and unstable. I mean, this guy had been begging me to forgive him and let him come back to me just a little over a week ago, and now he's pulled a complete 180. I guess this just proves that I did the right thing by not letting him back into my life after clearly he didn't mean any of it. It took a lot for me to keep my calm while he and his lawyer spewed the nastiest lies about me at the negotiation meeting and let my lawyer speak for me, but I knew that I had to stay cool. I knew I could win simply by telling the truth. And I wasn't going to let this fool provoke me into doing something stupid or rash with his lies and bullcrap. After the meeting, he even had the audacity to ask me if I'd heard from my sister and genuinely seemed shocked when I didn't bother answering him. I'm trying to speak to all the employees and business associates who have worked with us in the past to prove that I've always played a very major role in his business, but just never asked to be recognized or compensated for it, since I was content being just his wife who was helping him out. However, now the situation had changed and I wanted things to be fair to me. I'm just hoping that all of this pays off and things work out in my favor, since I'm just really stressed out about everything right now. Update 3. 2 days have passed since our last negotiation meeting, and I didn't think this man could stoop any lower, but needless to say, I was surprised yet again. A few hours ago, an employee called me up to tell me that my husband had offered them all hefty bribes to ignore any and all messages that they'd received from me. She and some of the other employees with a spine sensed that something was off about this request and decided to fill me in. Now, it all made total sense as to why I hadn't heard from anyone in spite of multiple emails and even texts. I'm sure that he'd said the same thing to our business associates as well, and one phone call confirmed the same. While he hadn't revealed anything about our divorce to the employees and silenced them with hush money, he'd used another approach for our business associates. After speaking to a woman who I'd always been on good terms with, I learned that he told all of them that he had caught me having an extramarital affair, and now I was demanding half of his business in the divorce as compensation. Since he couldn't really prove my infidelity, he was counting on them for help and wanted them to ignore me if I reached out to them, which they did. However, thankfully, this one woman was wise enough to be able to see through his crap and trusted me enough to answer my calls. She was shocked to find out what had actually happened and told me that I need not worry and that she'd clear things up with everyone else soon enough. I was almost on the verge of breaking down due to frustration, very honestly, since nobody was responding to me and I was completely on my own. But now I'm sure that it's going to change. And after everything that my husband has done in order to buy people out with his lies and bribes, I don't think he stands a chance to get anything out of this divorce. I'm still going to stick to my claims, but if he tries anything funny again, I'm going to ask for all of his other precious assets as well. Over time, he's collected quite a few expensive paintings, sculptures, and watches since he's always been an ardent admirer of everything artsy and rich. He'd tell me about how he'd always wanted to look rich and lead a luxurious lifestyle and was glad that thanks to me, he could finally afford everything that he'd ever wanted as a child. And now, thanks to himself, he'll be losing out on all of it if he dares mess with me again and pull some stupid stunt. I've told the people who've contacted me to let me know what my husband was trying to do behind my back, to send it all to me via email, so that I have evidence of him trying to cover up for himself and his lies. He has no way out of this one, that's for sure now. Update 4. Well, there are 2 days to go until our next meeting, and my husband has decided that he's not going to back down without a fight. If that's what he wants, then so be it. Yesterday, after he'd realized that some of his employees had ratted him out, thankfully, he couldn't trace it back to exactly who the employees were, or else he would have fired them for sure. So instead of just letting it go like a normal, sane human being, he decided to double down on his stupidity and made a long post about how I was harassing him for his money. He came up with some sad story to gain some sympathy from everyone and to make me look like a villain, saying that I was a drunkard and was spending his hard-earned money on liquor and shopping every day. He said that I caught him in an affair with my sister, who, as he said earlier, had also turned out to be no less than me and had scammed him out of $100,000. He ended by pleading with everyone to tell me that what I was doing was incredibly messed up and I couldn't just ask to be made partner in his business after everything I'd done to ruin his life. Sadly, some people who didn't know the truth were falling for it as well and were tagging me in the comments to tell me what an awful person I was and how they didn't expect something this low from me. Truth be told, I don't know what exactly this post was supposed to do, since I'm still not going to back off. If he thinks that scaring me with the threat of being ostracized by our friends will make me back down and let it go, then he's in for a nasty surprise. I'm not scared of anything at all. Everyone can cut me off if they want to for now, but I know that when the truth is out in the open, it'll be him who will be in trouble and not me. So he can lie all he wants and try to throw dirt on my name, but it's just not going to work and it's not going to scare me one bit. But this stupid move of his did succeed in making me sure that now I can't just have 50%, but I wanted all of it. I don't even feel guilty since he brought this all onto himself. There are just 2 days to go before the meeting, and I'm going to try my very best to make it the final one and force him to settle. I don't want to waste more of my time, very honestly, and I'm running low on my own bank balance as well. Hopefully, I'll be done with all of this pretty soon. Update 5. It's finally over. It's been a while since I've updated you guys on what happened last, but here we finally are. And yes, I own the entirety of the business that he started. He was already fighting a losing battle when I disapproved all his claims of me having an alcohol problem or never having been part of the business at all. And then I brought out all the screenshots of him trying to bribe and manipulate his way into winning by trying to turn everyone against me. He tried to bring up whatever had happened between him and my sister and said that I owed him that money since it was my sister who had stolen it from him. This is probably the only time that I'll ever have something good to say about my horrible, immoral sister. But technically, she was clever enough to avoid doing things in such a way that it could be called stealing. And I used that to my advantage, shamelessly, reminding him that I'd never had anything to do with my sister, and he'd known that right from the beginning. Plus, like I said, he'd given her the money of his own accord. Whether he'd been tricked into it or whatever didn't matter to me, since it wouldn't even have happened had he not cheated on me with my sister, so he had nobody to blame for that situation but himself. Eventually, he couldn't bring up anything else against me and was forced to settle by handing over the business I'd helped build to the person who was actually responsible for its success. And I couldn't be happier about it. After the final meeting, he texted me a long rant about how I'd ruined his life and how he was going to pray that I lose everything, just like he'd lost today. But I didn't let it bother me much and just wished him luck and then blocked him. Last I heard, he'd moved back in with his parents, which is pretty sad for him, but he deserves that. He should just count himself lucky that he's not homeless after everything that has happened. Of course, he continued to talk absolute crap about me for a few hours after the meeting. I posted my side of the story for everyone to see, and I know that nobody's taking him seriously anymore. I'm running the business by myself now, and I'm finding it a lot easier and smoother than earlier because I guess everything does seem better when you don't have to work alongside an idiot to boost his ego. As for my sister, who started this whole thing, my friends back home told me that she's getting married to some guy she met on her month-long vacation in Europe, which is where I'm guessing all that money went. Good for her. I guess since she managed to expose my husband's true colors. But whatever. I'm just glad that none of them are in my life anymore and I'm finally free. Stay tuned for more stories from Argo